Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about secondary research. As you've surely been asked when writing a persuasive essay, you need support to kind of back up your position, right? And often that support comes in the form of scholarly research or trustworthy secondary sources. And the secondary source is essentially just a source that is not you, right? It's the work of someone else that you're bringing in order to support your position. So in front of us here is Google, right? Something you're very familiar with. And I think Google is a fine place to start your secondary research. However, it's not a place to stop, right? It's a nice jumping in point, but that's not where you want to kind of end your research. However, I want to show you something pretty cool that maybe some of you may know, but some of you may not. So let's say you're given a research project or you're doing a persuasive essay and your instructor says, okay, no .coms, like myself, no .coms, right? Well, one thing that you can do, let's say you're doing a project on limiting hate speech on college campuses, you can type limiting hate speech on college campuses, and then you can type cite:.edu. You search, and notice everything that comes back at you is a .edu or an educational website. Notice if I, instead of putting .edu, I put .gov, everything that would come back at me would be a government website. And so that's one nice kind of restriction that you can place on your Google search to help narrow your Google search and to avoid .coms. Okay, but the other thing I want to talk about today is using our library databases to find trustworthy secondary sources. You pay a lot of money in your tuition for these databases, so you should take advantage of them. Now, if you're on the library home screen, right, you're probably familiar with this little search bar right here, that it casts a very wide net, right? So that's looking at all of our books and all of the articles. It's pretty huge. But I want to look at a few more specific ways to do research. So right here, you're going to see databases A through Z. And if you click on that, you're going to see all of the databases that we have at CSU East Bay come up. And we have heaps and heaps, right? These are almost Googles, but for specific types of research. So you'll notice here the bibliography of history of art, right? So if you're an art historian, this would be a wonderful tool that you could use. But I don't want to focus on that today. Instead, I want to focus on three different tools that you can use for this upcoming project. Okay, so the first one is Academic Search Complete, sometimes called EBSCOhost at other campuses, but here it's just called Academic Search Complete. You click on that, and this is what comes up, right? And you'll notice it's somewhat similar to Google. But what I like is down here, you have all these search options, right? And so you could say, you know what? For the language, I really only want English. You could click on that, and now everything that comes up is going to be written in English. Publication type, let's say I don't want books, I only want periodicals, or I only want primary sources, or only newspapers. I could click on one of those in order to narrow my search, right? And I could even click scholarly right here, and that means everything that comes up is going to be a scholarly source, meaning it's written usually by a university professor or researcher, and it's published in a scholarly or academic journal. So this is like, if you're having to do scholarly research, that's like the creme de la creme. That's what you want. So going back, now I can say I've clicked on scholarly research or scholarly articles only, and I've clicked on English only. Now I can go back and I can say limiting hate speech at college campuses. And I search. And now look at it, combating hate speech on college campuses, the regulation of hate speech on college campuses, and the Library Bill of Rights, campus hate speech codes. I get a lot of sources coming my way that I could then click on, and that might be useful to my own research, and that could help support my position. So that is EBSCOhost, and I'll show you one thing. Notice the publication date. You can actually move that up so that it's only sources from, for example, 2001 to 2016. So let's say you have an instructor who says, hey, no articles that were written more than 10 years ago. You can restrict it like that. Okay, so that is one tool that you have at your fingertips. There's another one that is pretty cool. If you go all the way down to N, you're going to see the New York Times. Now, 2 points that you may not know. Here, New York Times account registration. Students, you actually get the New York Times for free online. That's pretty cool. That actually costs hundreds of dollars. So if you haven't signed up for that already, you're welcome to. But I want to look at something different. The New York Times ProQuest historical newspapers. If you click on that, you have access to the New York Times dating back to the 1850s, which is wonderfully awesome, right? I've had students, I had one student who was looking at Frederick Douglass, and she only wanted information back in the 1800s, so she was able to restrict her search. That way she only got materials back from the 1800s. So if you're ever doing a historical project, this is such a cool, wonderful tool. So I click here, and it says Advanced Search. And here I could type in hate speech or freedom of speech or limiting speech, whatever I wanted. Speech at college campuses. And I hit enter. And everything that comes up is now a New York Times article, right? Again, I can restrict the date. Right? And notice this first one, battling bias, campuses face free speech fight, city college students study the anatomy of hate, confronting a hate speech. Lots of good stuff coming my way that might help support my position. And again, if for fun, if you ever wanted to like do some research on other eras, you could go from 1900 to 1930s. And now everything that comes back at you is quite old. They look pretty cool. I'll show you an example really quickly. Right, this is how it looks. And you can tell it's an older type of article. Okay, so the final source that I want to show you today is the Oxford English Dictionary, which you do have to pay for. If you weren't a Cal State East Bay student, you would have to pay for it, but you get it for free because you are a Cal State East Bay student. So if you go to O and click on Oxford English Dictionary, the OED, as we call it, comes up. The Oxford English Dictionary is the dictionary you want to use if you're defining something in an academic essay. So rather than just using, I don't know, like the Google dictionary, try to use the Oxford English Dictionary. It's considered like the dictionary or the most trustworthy one. And it is really a cool tool because it also gives you the etymology of the word, meaning how the word evolved or where it came from. So the word I'm going to do today, I always like to do because I think it's pretty shocking. We're going to look at the word vagina. Okay, so I searched that up. Notice I get the actual definition of vagina, but look what it says. The etymology, Latin, meaning sheath or scabbard. That's where it comes from. And now, guys, do you know what a sheath or scabbard is? If not, you can look that up. What the sheath or scabbard is the thing that holds your sword. So now we learned that vagina comes from the word in Latin sheath, meaning the thing that holds your sword. Think about that for a moment. Think about what that actually means. All of that to say, notice that it's a pretty cool source to see where are these words that we use actually not only how they're defined, but also where they come from. So those are 3 different sources that you can use in this paper in order to kind of back up and get support for your positions. Do know that the New York Times is not a scholarly source, though it is the most trustworthy newspaper in the state. So you can use that, but it does not count as a scholarly source. On EBSCOhost, when you click scholarly sources only, those are scholarly sources, meaning publications written by professors and researchers. So I hope that helps, not only for this paper, giving you a sense of how you can find research, but also for other essays that you're writing in future classes.